All right, Browns fans, buckle up, because what looked like a disaster a few weeks ago might actually turn into one of the smartest moves Andrew Berry makes all offseason. I'm talking about Jim Schwartz walking away from his defensive coordinator job. And no, before you panic, this isn't another classic Browns meltdown. This could actually be a masterclass in leverage, and I'm going to show you exactly how Cleveland is about to flip a bad breakup into a legitimate asset. Now, before we dive deep into this chess match Berry's playing with the rest of the league, do me a favor and smash that like button. And here's a question I want you to answer in the comments. Should the Browns have done more to keep Jim Schwartz in Cleveland, or is it time to move on and cash in? Drop your thoughts below, because this conversation is heating up across Browns Nation. So here's where we're at. Jim Schwartz resigned. Just walked away from his post as defensive coordinator. Shocking move, right? But here's the part nobody's talking about enough. Schwartz is still under contract with the Browns through 2026, and Cleveland holds an option on him for 2027. That's not some minor detail buried in the fine print. That's leverage. That's power. That means Jim Schwartz's NFL rights belong to the Cleveland Browns, and if another team wants him on their sideline, they're going to have to negotiate with Andrew Berry first. Now, let me paint you a picture of what's happening behind the scenes. Tony Grossi reported that a league source confirmed the Browns will retain Schwartz's rights, which opens the door for potential compensation. Albert Breer, one of the most plugged-in insiders in the NFL, has reinforced that same notion. Meanwhile, Mary Kay Cabot said trading Schwartz isn't possible under NFL rules, but here's the thing, she didn't provide specifics. So what's the real story here? Is this just smoke and mirrors, or does Cleveland actually have a path to turn this resignation into a draft pick? Let's look at history, because precedent matters in the NFL. Sean Payton was traded. That happened. A head coach under contract was dealt from New Orleans to Denver for a package that included draft picks. So if the NFL has allowed that kind of transaction before, then absolutely, the Browns can get something in return for Jim Schwartz. The key difference here is that Schwartz resigned instead of fulfilling his contract, but that doesn't mean Cleveland is obligated to let him walk away free and clear, especially not to a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, who are reportedly very interested in bringing him in as their next defensive coordinator. Think about the position this puts the Browns in. Schwartz clearly wanted a promotion. He wanted to be a head coach. When that didn't happen, he decided to walk. But instead of the Browns just saying, okay, thanks for your service, good luck, they're holding tight to his contractual rights and essentially saying, you don't want to coach here anymore? That's fine. But you're not going anywhere unless we get compensated. That's not petty. That's business. That's smart. That's the kind of move that separates organizations that get taken advantage of from organizations that dictate the terms. And here's where it gets really interesting. The Raiders are one of the few teams still desperately searching for a defensive coordinator. Most of the top names are already gone. Raheem Morris, Jonathan Gannon, Anthony Weaver, all off the board. Vegas is running out of quality options, and that puts Cleveland in a legitimate bargaining position. The Browns can walk into that negotiation room and say, you need a defensive coordinator. We've got one of the best available, but it's going to cost you. Now, the Raiders might try to argue that since Schwartz resigned, Cleveland has no leverage, but the Browns can hold the line. No compensation, no Schwartz. It's that simple. So what would a trade actually look like? Let's be realistic here. Nobody's giving up a first or second round pick for a defensive coordinator. That's not happening. A sixth or seventh round pick. Absolutely within the realm of possibility. And if Andrew Berry can pull that off, if he can turn a coordinator who quit into a day 3 draft pick, that's the kind of savvy move that builds a winning culture. Cleveland already owns 3 fifth-round picks in the upcoming draft. Add a 6th rounder to that collection for a coach who doesn't even want to be here anymore, and you're talking about maximizing value in a situation that could have been a total loss. Now, there's always the possibility that a deal doesn't materialize. Maybe the offseason drags on, interest in Schwartz cools down, or no team is willing to meet Cleveland's asking price. In that scenario, the Browns could eventually release him from his contract. But I wouldn't expect that to happen anytime soon. Right now, Cleveland is playing this perfectly. They're holding all the cards, and unless a team steps up with an offer that makes sense, Jim Schwartz isn't coaching anywhere in 2025. Why would the Browns let him walk for free when there's even a small chance they could extract value, especially when a team as desperate as the Raiders might be willing to part with a late-round pick to fill their vacant coordinator slot? But here's where this story gets even better, because while everyone's focused on the Jim Schwartz drama, there's another storyline brewing in Cleveland that could define the next decade of Browns football. I'm talking about Shadur Sanders. Now I know what you're thinking. Shadur Sanders, Coach Prime's son, drafted in the 5th round by Cleveland in 2024. There's all this noise about Deion Sanders potentially following his son to the NFL, coaching in Cleveland, the whole circus. But Deion shut that down immediately. He made it crystal clear he's not coming to the NFL, not after everything his family went through. But here's what's fascinating. That noise around Deion has faded, but the conversation about Shadur is just heating up. Shelby Harris, veteran defensive tackle, came out with some really strong comments about the young quarterback. He said Shadur gets an unfair reputation, called him intelligent, vocal, a great locker room presence. And that matters. When a veteran player publicly endorses a rookie quarterback like that, it tells you something about how that kid is carrying himself. It tells you the locker room is starting to buy in. And in the NFL, respect from your teammates, especially as a young quarterback, is everything. Here's the thing that Browns fans need to understand. If Shadur Sanders wins the starting job, and I mean actually earns it in camp and throughout the season, this is a massive win for Cleveland on multiple levels. First, he's on a rookie contract. A 5th-round pick. Do you understand the value proposition there? If a 5th-round quarterback turns into even a competent starter, that's one of the best possible outcomes in football economics. It frees up cap space, gives the team flexibility to build around him, and energizes the fan base in a way that few things can. But beyond the financial side, Shadur brings something else to the table. National attention. National recognition. Love him or hate him, people know who Shadur Sanders is. His success in Cleveland would put this team in the spotlight like never before. The Browns would go from being a gritty, blue-collar underdog story to a box office franchise with a young, polarizing quarterback who fans either love or love to hate. That's ratings. That's merchandise. That's exposure. And in today's NFL, that matters. Now, I'm not saying Shadur is a lock to be the franchise quarterback. There's still a lot to prove. He's raw. He's young. He's going to have ups and downs. But here's what we do know. His college career was filled with adversity, hype, pressure, media scrutiny. That's NFL training in itself. He's not going to be rattled by the Cleveland spotlight. If anything, he's built for it. He's been under a microscope his entire football life. Playing in front of passionate Browns fans at Huntington Bank Field isn't going to shake him. And let's talk about opportunity. The Browns aren't exactly flush with clear-cut quarterback options right now. There's no entrenched starter waiting in the wings. That opens a massive window for Shadur to come in and compete. This isn't a situation where he's buried on the depth chart with no realistic path to the field. This is a legitimate chance to earn a starting job in the NFL, and for a 5th-round pick, that's all you can ask for. So let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. You've got Jim Schwartz on his way out, potentially turning into a draft pick. You've got Shadur Sanders on his way up, potentially turning into a starting quarterback. This offseason isn't just about filling holes or making splashy signings. This is about redefining the identity of the Cleveland Browns. This is about showing the rest of the league that this organization doesn't just react to chaos anymore. They control it. They shape it. They leverage it. Andrew Berry and the front office have stockpiled draft picks. They've got contracts in place. They've built a foundation. But now it's about taking the next step. Holding Jim Schwartz's rights and demanding compensation isn't just a tactical move. It's a statement. It says to every other team in the NFL, we're not here to be a stepping stone. You want something from us, you're going to pay for it. If the Raiders cough up a 6th-round pick for Schwartz, and if Shadur ends up winning the starting job and delivers even average quarterback play, the Browns would walk into 2026 with one of the most efficient offseason returns on investment in the entire league. A coach who didn't want to be here becomes a draft pick. A late-round quarterback turns into a possible franchise piece. That's how winning organizations operate. That's how you build sustained success. And here's something else Browns fans should recognize. There's an energy shift happening in Cleveland right now. This Jim Schwartz situation could have spiraled into another classic Browns circus. Confusion, mixed messages, media speculation, fan frustration. But instead, there's structure. There's control. There's clarity. Even if the NFL's rules around trading coaches are a bit gray, the Browns are handling this with professionalism and purpose. They're not letting outside noise dictate their decisions. They're sticking to what benefits the team. Now nothing is guaranteed. The Raiders might decide to wait it out. Schwartz might sit out a year. Shadur might struggle in training camp or fall behind on the depth chart. That's football. But for the first time in a long time, Cleveland is playing chess instead of checkers. They're thinking 2, 3 moves ahead. And that kind of strategic thinking is what separates good teams from great ones. Let's also talk about how this sets up Andrew Berry's approach to the draft. With 3 fifth-round picks already locked in and a potential 6th-rounder on the way from a Schwartz trade, the Browns are positioning themselves to dominate the later rounds of the draft. That's where Berry thrives. That's where Cleveland has found contributors before. This front office values volume. More picks mean more opportunities to find a steal, to uncover a diamond in the rough. If you're the Browns and you're staring at a situation where your former defensive coordinator wants to leave, why not play hardball? Why not extract every ounce of value you can? Jim Schwartz may not want to coach in Cleveland anymore, but the Browns still control the narrative. They still hold the power. As for Shadur, the key word is development. There's no need to rush him. Let him grow. Let him earn the respect of the locker room. Let the media spin their narratives while he puts in the work. That quiet build, that slow burn, could be the foundation of something real, something lasting. This isn't about throwing him into the fire before he's ready. This is about giving him the time and space to develop into the player he can be. This is a Browns team standing at the edge of something new. Not just surviving chaos, but controlling it. Not just reacting to drama, but flipping it into wins. This offseason could very well be remembered as a turning point. Not because of blockbuster trades or splashy free agent signings, but because Cleveland handled its business with intent, with intelligence, with a little bit of swagger. If they trade Jim Schwartz and get a pick in return, if they let Shadur Sanders develop without rushing him, fans might look back on this awkward chapter as the spark that ignited the next great era of Browns football. And that's exactly why you can't miss stories like this. The next big moment doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with a quiet power move in the middle of February. So if you're not already subscribed to Browns Breakout, hit that subscribe button right now. Give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment with your thoughts on the Schwartz situation and Shadur's future, and keep it locked here for all the latest Browns news and analysis. This is where the real conversation happens. This is where Browns fans come to get the full story, not just the headlines. Go Browns!